Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jordan Campbell. I'm the executive director of the Gateway Regional Arts Center, and we are thrilled today to uh, be having a webinar from around the world, really, with two really wonderful um, artists and curators themselves, and really centering on these powerful projects that are asking us to sort of dive directly into the human reality of the ongoing war in Ukraine. So the exhibition that is currently at GRAC on display just for a few more days in July. I think we closed July 15th. Is that correct? Yep. So we are open until July 15th. If you haven't come to the center to see the exhibit, please do. You have a few more days to see that. We are open Tuesday through Friday, 1 p.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturdays 10 to 2. So we hope you will come and see that exhibition before it closes on July 15th. And that exhibit is We Know Who They Are, Artworks and Narratives from the Invasion of Ukraine. And we are so excited to have Yevgen with us, who was in Mount Sterling for the opening, Yevgen Nemchenko, who is the curator of that series of works. And we're also so excited to have another filmmaker and creative and Kentuckian from Washington County, Springfield. We have Justin Hamilton Salem, who's a filmmaker and creative connected to Change My Mind, the film. And you can talk more about that. Maybe give it the title in its native language, Justin, that I certainly can't do justice to. But we're excited to have Justin as well, who is going to contextualize some of this for us through a different medium, which is film. And so I am going to be quiet now, and I'm going to turn it over because we have limited time. But I want to let these two folks speak a little bit about their projects and how they came to the work. So, Yevgen, if you want to introduce yourself a little and contextualize it with We Know Who They Are and how you came to the work.
So thank you, Jordan, for this introduction, and thank you for having us at GRAC. This is amazing. The opening was amazing, and I can see that it's going well. The exhibit is going well. Thank you, Beth, too, very much for your support. And as Jordan said, my name is Yevgen Nemchenko, and I am a curator of the We Know Who They Are exhibit and project. And the project came about very shortly after the full-scale invasion. Literally within a week, probably, I started working on it because I felt that I had to do something, that I couldn't just sit back and the only thing I could do is really that, because um I didn't have the capacity or friendship circles or time to really do serious fundraising. Plus, it was already in place by the big organizations, which I supported as well. But this, I felt that I knew and I could put this together, and I started collecting artworks. Again, shortly, I was shipping them from Ukraine, and eventually grew into a collection that I shown in DC in October, so less than 6 months, about 6 months after the full-scale invasion. And then I was contacted by my now partner Benjamin Cunningham, who sadly is not here today because he's traveling. But he approached me and he wanted to do a more pointed project that would reflect the atrocities of war, and that would show the toll that the war takes on people, on regular people, on soldiers, on society itself. And that's how We Know Who They Are was born. We took all of the art that we have and then the art that we could potentially get, and eventually we added artifacts to it. So we have the exhibit also presents things like pieces of Iranian drones, for example, pieces that were looted by the Russian soldiers, pieces of Russian armor, and some pieces of Ukrainian buildings and debris from the prominent locations and events from the war. And we just started gathering it, putting it together, and that's how the project was born. And now it's going. It was in DC, it was in Alabama, now it's in Kentucky, then it's going to Baltimore, and then it's going to North Carolina, and who knows then where. So yeah, that's
I love it. I love all that Southern representation too. That's great.
yes. We're actually in talks with Mississippi now.
That's
wow,
great.
you're making
That's
the full Deep South tour. I love that. No, that's great. And you and I have talked about this, but I think there's a misconception too about in the US about certain regions not having diversity, but there are very, very prominent Ukrainian and Russian communities in those southern states. And I think that not only folks who are just, from other backgrounds in the US who are experiencing this and saying, wow, I didn't know all of that or whatever. I think it's also really impactful for those communities to see themselves represented, and so I love that you come from the work too, Yevgen. It's not you trying to promote your art. A lot of times it's artists, and it takes us all in a different way. And you're sort of that, the champion for those works. And so I love your passion for that. And so now, before we get to our questions for Yevgen, I also want to introduce Justin. And Justin, if you would give us a little bit about your background and sort of what brought you to the work of Change My Mind, and also maybe a little bit about your Kentucky connection and how you went from Kentucky to the Czech Republic.
Yeah, I mean, I've lived outside of Kentucky for over half my life, but whenever I think of home, I think of Kentucky. Like it's where like when I dream about home, it's what I dream of. I love the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and whenever I read news from the U.S., I'm always like trying to read news from the state. But yeah, my background is in film production and advertising. I've directed a bunch of commercials, a bunch of music videos, some of which were on MTV a long time ago, back when they used to show music videos, kind of like in the last few years they show music videos. And I've worked on a bunch of movies, and I've written some TV shows that no one saw because they didn't last more than a season. Um, and then I've worked a lot in advertising. I was a creative director at a fairly successful agency called Fallon, McElligott, and Young and Rubicam, and a few other shops, BETC in Paris. And when my wife and I we were living in Paris, and we moved back to Prague. I've lived in Prague. Like I actually get my bachelor's and my master's degree here in Prague at FAMU, which is the film academy here, and all the courses were in Czech, so I had to learn Czech too. It was kind of like hard mode. That's another story at all. But so when I was there, I met a lot of friends and classmates, and later on, we got involved in many projects together. And when my wife and we moved back, my old classmate Jakub Drocar, who's the main producer of the movie Change My Mind, or the Czech title is called Velký Vlastenecký Výlet, which literally in Czech it translates to Our Great Patriotic Journey. But then when we were trying to think out how to market the movie, I was like, we should call it Change My Mind. Um, and but when I moved back to Prague, the production company Punk Film that's co-owned by Jakub Drocar, we were talking about kind of working on some projects together, and they brought me on as their kind of in-house creative director. I helped develop projects. We have a very small boutique kind of creative workshop called Minor Threat, where we help market movies that we produce, and we produce about this year we're slated to release about, I don't know, 4 films and 2 TV series. So everyone's kind of a little bit overworked. But all of our projects, we try to pick a side and have a real impact. And with Change My Mind, I got involved because the director Robin Kvapil, who's another classmate of ours, had this idea that he wanted to do something. He felt basically like when the war began, uh, even if you go back 20 years ago, you always felt a very strong Ukrainian presence in Prague and in the Czech Republic, whether it's Prague or Ostrava or Brno, you really they were here, right? And they're really part of the community here. So when the war broke out and we were in Paris, but when we moved to Prague, even though we were thousands of kilometers away from the war, we could still kind of feel it every day in a way that didn't require news. You really felt it. And so Robin really wanted to do something, and he had this idea, which he brought to Jakob Drotzog at Punk Film, to take 3 people that totally bought into um, the Russian narrative, or variants of that propaganda, and give them cameras and take them to the front lines of the war. And Drotsar, thought it was a crazy idea. And I remember my wife and I, we just moved back to Prague, and he asked me what I thought. I said, I think you should absolutely do this, but be warned. Anyone that says yes, I will go to the front lines of a war with the camera to see if what I believe is real. They're going to be very likely crazy. And so you're going to have to manage them, which from a production standpoint is can be really tricky. And it was. Um, but so I got involved fairly early on and more about really kind of how to market the film because basically when the movie came out, we were in a really unique position that the film was released on the 21st of August, which is the anniversary of when Russia crushed the Czechoslovak Revolution in 1968. Every Czech knows that date. Every Slovak knows that date. Pretty much everyone in Central and Eastern Europe knows that date. Um, and it just so happened that last year was an election year. And so when the movie came out, in Europe, they typically have like a media blackout before elections, usually like a month or a few weeks before elections, so they can't run political ads. But because we were promoting the movie, we we could kind of slip past this blackout, and so we orchestrated a whole marketing campaign to basically run like my brief, my like I came up with the brief and I briefed a few ad agencies and we chose what we thought was the best one to execute it. And the basically our in-house strategic brief was we want you to create we don't want a trailer for the film. There's going to be a trailer for the film. We don't want a trailer for the film. What we want is that we want you to run a propaganda campaign against the Czech Republic. Right. We take our Thai media budget and just have a disinformation campaign against the Czech Republic. And that's what they did, and that's what mainly my job was. And actually, a week ago, we were just awarded kind of the equivalent of like an Oscar in advertising for the campaign that we did. We won a Silver Lion at the Cannes Lion Festival. Um, so I was
Congratulations. Wow.
yeah. Actually, it was real cool. It was the only award that was awarded the Czech Republic this year. So
Congrats.
we're quite proud of that. Um, and yeah, that was my involvement. And then like also with a lot of logistical stuff during the production, and now based on that, we're doing a TV series based on the same concept called Change My Mind the series, where every episode takes a different thing. We're shooting that right now, and we have 2 other projects that are being shot in Ukraine right now. Um, so yeah, busy. Anyway, that's mine.
Amazing.
Mhm.
Oh, well, great. That generated so many questions already. But uh, first of all, love Prague. If you haven't been, it's a great place to vacation.
Everyone should go.
Beautiful
Yes,
city.
everyone. Yes, everyone should visit. Everyone should visit. Everyone should visit.
Yeah, yeah. And so different from Western Europe. I think so many Americans know like the big, the capitals of Western Europe and
Yeah,
uh,
it's a little bit like a film set.
very different. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
You
really
know, like
pristine texturally. So now I'm gonna pull Yevon back in, and I want to know how you two met because we opened this exhibition, and Yevon said, "Wait, there's this guy you've got to meet. He made a film, and he's amazing, and also I think he's from Kentucky." But so there was a lot of little connection points there. So
yeah.
how did you two meet?
Justin, you're gonna have to do that because I don't quite remember how
Okay.
exactly we met, and
Okay.
I remember that movie was introduced to me
Yeah.
by the photographer from Slovak photographer, right? Am I right, or am I getting?
Yes. 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 So. I see how we met was that you had heard about the film and you had contacted Jakub Pinkava, the other producer, the other main
Mhm.
producer of the film. And if you ever try to reach out to Punk Film, some we your all the emails get read, but usually it gets before it gets opened, it's preceded by a slew of curse words in Czech or Slovak because everyone's so busy and no one wants to open it because they're going to have something else to do.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so it was a slew of curse because it's a really right. We're a full service shop. We do commercials as well, but everyone just kind of juggles a lot of balls. And so he was like, "Someone from America." Right, Justin, can you
Oh,
do
really?
this?
That was
Because
interesting.
you wanted to screen the film in the US, and then we were gonna have a road show in the US, and we were planning a road show. It was all about your exhibit. We were gonna take the film because we don't have distribution in the States. Like we're on Netflix in Europe, but we don't have distribution in the US. Um, and we had this whole big plan because there's an organization called Darak pro Putina that is a client of ours. We do ads for them, which that literally translates to gift for Putin. And it's very tongue in cheek. It's a crowdfunding organization where basically it converts kind of it can yeah it basically it converts support into tactical action. Basically, it's like Kickstarter but for weapons, right? So it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll get on my phone and, oh, I can buy some RPGs. Okay, there you go, and you buy RPGs and go to the front line. We're doing a documentary about this group as well. It's going to be out later this year. Um,
Okay.
but but so they were going to fund it. They were going to fund it, and then it fell through. Um, and then it fell through because of the political because of the political situation in the U.S. And but that was how we met, and then we became like Jakob Pinkava and myself. We became really familiar with the exhibit that you put on and the work that you do. And for us, it was a no-brainer to give you permission to show our film wherever your exhibition goes, because frankly, we really believe in the work that you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
And not to tickle your not to tickle your tuchus too much, but to try to speak from sincerity here. It's like I think it's fantastic and important. Like it's really important. It's not just the exhibition itself is important, but I think it's really important the fact that you're going to Alabama and you're going to Kentucky and you're potentially going to Mississippi because places like these, yes, you're right. Yes, there is diversity there, but it's also a place where it gets a bad rap for people that are that don't get out, right? That they still live in 1870 or 19, I don't know, or 1922, but they want to debate and they want to learn and they're curious. And the reason why people say, "Oh, they're so friendly down there," is because they're curious. They want to meet. They want to talk. And the fact that you are taking such a hot plate boiler issue, right, that has firsthand, it's almost like it's almost like it's like an expressionistic transcription of what's going on there, down to places that normally do not have any exposure and would never have any exposure. To me, that is so important, and it's great. And thank you for doing that. So, anyway, that's how we got involved.
That's yeah. I can add to that too. Now I remember, and when I saw the movie, and I'll talk about the movie in a minute too because it's amazing. It's difficult, but when I saw the movie, I obviously immediately wanted to do something with it. I wanted to show it in my exhibits and possibly at my exhibits that are coming up. We'll screen it as well, if you don't mind. Then I offered it to Greg, and then the Kentucky thing came up, and I was like, well, this is just a match made in heaven. It makes,
Yeah.
it's pretty much was supposed to happen, I think, somewhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
predetermined, yeah, somebody predetermined that,
Yeah.
and the part and the part of the goal that it became organically that the goal now or the root of the exhibit is to take it to the places that would not otherwise see it. Of
Right.
course, we would not, snub on New York. That's not, I would not say no, but I feel like places like Mississippi, North Carolina, they just
Yeah.
don't get to see much of anything really, much of
And they'll
anything that,
remember.
yeah. And they will remember it's going
Like
to be a real
it'll
event.
resonate. It really
Yeah.
like things like that resonate. Like if an exhibition of quality or work of note, like that's when it. I mean, that's when it resonates.
Yeah,
It's
and
like,
that's
yeah,
that's what I feel, and that's what I see when I went to Alabama. I saw that they were really they cared, you know. But about the movie, yeah, when I saw the movie, I was amazed at the movie, how well it's put together, how uh the organization worked, how did you get those people, and how you paid attention to them. That's very important, that they were not
yeah,
treated like somebody, oh, you don't know anything, no, it's you
yeah,
treated them with dignity, and they were
yeah, yeah,
fine too.
yeah,
But it was tough, like when I watched the schools in the like underground or metro stations, or where I don't know where it
yeah,
was,
yeah. I was
but
in Kharkiv.
yeah. And I turned to my friend who was sitting right next to me, and he's from Kiev. He was there, and it was like, "Is it?" I knew about it because obviously we
Right,
have a video in the exhibit that shows that.
right.
But to me, I treated those underground schools and kindergartens more like an oddity. But I was like, "Is it really like that everywhere?" He was like, "Yeah, it's." He said, "Now it's better." Because the Ukrainian armed forces, they work pretty well defending well, yeah, pretty well depending on the situation, obviously, and we'll
Yeah,
talk about it, I guess, later.
yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty much like that. That the children are sitting in the basement of the apartment buildings and metro stations, and they just
Mm,
do their
yeah.
work. So the movie is just amazing. I cried a little. I gotta say, which I know a lot of people did. So
Mm.
I recommend the movie to everybody to see, to
Feel
watch.
good movie of the year, like I said.
Yes,
And,
yes.
it also real quick for anyone watching this that doesn't know what the film is about. The English title is called Change My Mind, and we find three people. We take three people that think to varying degrees that the war in Ukraine is fake, or that Russia's there to help, the Russians are there to help, that Ukraine started the war. All different kind of different lines of propaganda. And we went to those people and we said, okay, we want to give you cameras and we won't really edit what you say or what you film, and we want to take you not just to Ukraine, but to the front lines of the war, and we'll show everything that you film and say, and we want to see if you change your mind. And
Yeah, and what was weird to me about the movie is that, not weird, I guess, obviously there are different people in every country, but that there are people like this that sincerely believe in Czech Republic. So that was
well,
strange. I would understand people being on the fence or not care,
well,
like, oh, I don't give a a damn about Ukraine. I have my own life. I have my own chickens. I have my own
yeah,
computer, whatever. It's not my
yeah,
problem. I don't want to help. That I understand that. I don't think it's right, but I understand it, right? Everybody has
right,
their, but to people to actually believe living in Europe, that was a
right,
little strange. Like, where do they get their information? Where do they get all
right,
this? So yeah, that
right.
was my shock to a
Well,
degree.
yeah, I mean, like we might get into this with questions, but one of the biggest learning from me, right? The biggest learning for me personally on this whole journey is, you know, everyone, regardless of your education level or how smart you are, or how smart you think you are, or how dumb you are, or just whether you're a troglodyte, um, all of us are susceptible to propaganda, right? And without getting too far into the weeds, and whether it's just kind of general cognitive warfare or just news or doom scrolling, we're all susceptible. And in some cases, we're very likely all guilty about something, right? For it. So it's very that's kind of the shocking thing. So, but you're right about the Czech Republic, because Czech I mean, I've lived here a long time, and uh oh yeah, there we go. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've lived here a long time, and growing, and yeah, like Czechs aren't very fond of Russians in general. And so so it's kind of shocking that that quite a few of them
Mm.
kind of bought into the propaganda. Um, yeah. But I mean, we're all susceptible.
Absolutely. And okay, again, you all I have a list of questions, and you all keep adding to my list with all this conversation. But I just wanted to. This is the poster for the film, the intro screen, I guess, and or what was that called? There's a formal title for that, like the
Title.
title screen. There we go. There, yeah, that's I said it. So we are excited to announce right here on this webinar that we will be hosting a screening of the film in Mount Sterling in Kentucky.
Yay.
If we have the permission of Justin, that would be great.
You do.
And Yevgen, I know that we had talked about doing that, and so we will be doing that on July 10th at 6:30,
Okay,
and
that's great.
it is free. And so we hope that you will join us in Mount Sterling at 101 East Main Street in Mount Sterling, Kentucky, at the Gateway Regional Arts Center. We will be showing Change My Mind, so you can learn a little more of all this great context that we're chatting about today. So I have a question really for both of you, and I think this goes to the point of what art can do that maybe reading the headlines. I think a lot of people see Ukraine in the headlines. They see what Russia's doing. And there, of course, as you said, Justin, there's so much propaganda and misinformation, even in American media, or just a lack of understanding of the region in general,
Mhm.
or a skewed perspective of the American understanding of Russian, involvement in in global politics. But something that we do find, and going back to that point about rural Southerners,
Mm.
they may not connect with the cultural relevance. They may not understand the context of the war. They may not understand why is this important to me. But the one thing that everyone can understand in a place like rural Kentucky is the sense of home and the loss of a home, or the challenging of, one frame I always use is, a lot of our families have been here for hundreds of years. A lot of people who live in Kentucky, their families have been here. They know, they know their lineage. They know where they come from. Oh yeah, my great 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 grandfather came over from Ireland or whatever, but they've been in Kentucky for hundreds of years. And so my point to a lot of folks is, imagine being told that you have to leave your home, or and if you are, and you say no, I refuse, what the implications of that are, the dangers that you're putting yourself in. But and we actually have that in Eastern Kentucky with the floods. We've had a couple of 100-year floods within the last floods and tornadoes, and it's displacing entire communities. A little different when it's a natural disaster, but it's relative, because a lot of people sort of understand suddenly that discomfort, and the discomfort that these conversations bring up. So I sort of that's the point I wanted to get to, was discomfort, whether it's through a film, you're watching it and you're feeling the discomfort of the reactions of people in the film, or it's the art, Yevgen, and it's the found materials. We have a lot of people who have to sit with that discomfort. I sort of wonder from you all what your perspective is. What is a productive response to discomfort in these scenarios? If I'm looking at this art, and what do you hope people walk away from in this, after sitting with this discomfort?
The discomfort of loss,
or a discomfort about anything, right? Like, my views are being changed, or I'm being challenged, or the discomfort of understanding it in a different way. I mean, what do you want people to walk away from? We know who they are.
I have never been asked this question before. That's a very interesting question. So I can tell you that nobody expected that in Ukraine, right? And just like a tornado or a flood, it's different. Obviously, tornado or flood is a one thing. It happens once, while war is continuous and goes on for a while. And this one goes on for a really while now. So nobody expected it. Nobody really was ready for it in Ukraine. There were certain things that were being done, like certain shelters that were being put together, but really nobody was ready for it. And I guess you cannot be ready, and even mentally is even more of a problem. At this point, I don't have anybody of my relatives in Ukraine anymore. For example, they all left because of the war. The last person was my cousin, and now he's in Germany. And obviously, he wasn't ready either. They just moved into a new apartment. They were a condo, and they were doing renovations there. It wasn't done. I think it's still not done. And then they had to move to Germany, and they lived in some apartment that they were given. So the point here is that when you're not ready for something, and when something like this happens, you have to take it in stride, do what you got to do, and react. But the most important thing that Ukrainians took out of it is to live for today, and not to wait to do something, not to put it off until tomorrow. That's probably the most kind of the overarching one of the most important overarching things that I got from the artists from the interview with them, and I see it happening. Like one of the artists that I work with, I don't think she's actually in the exhibit, unfortunately, but she's the artist that I work with, and I helped in various ways. She's from Kharkiv. She's from the city where you did the movie, Justin.
Mm.
and they escaped to the far west of Ukraine, which is Uzhgorod, which is right by Slovakia, like 30
Mm.
miles away from Slovakia.
Mm.
So she was like 50 miles or 30 miles away from Russia, which is where is Kharkiv, and then she moved all the way to 30 miles from the other end, basically.
Right.
And they left, and she described me the whole process of leaving, how they were in a train, how they were not allowed when they were passing by Kiev. All the blinds were, drawn down,
Mm.
lowered, and they were not allowed to use to smoke or to use cell phones because that's what Russian army targeted. They targeted rows of lights, thinking that it may be like a
Convoy.
military convoy or something like that, and they were passing by Kiev when it was being bombed, and then they arrived in Uzhgorod. They lived in like a gym, and then they finally got somewhere into the hotel, and then they got an apartment, and now they actually have a good life, and she
Mm.
attributes it to her taking chances. She said that she never she always wanted to try theater, for
Mm.
example, in Kharkiv, where she's from, but she never did. She was like, well, you know how it is. Well, it might not be good, or it's a waste of time. Why would I? In Uzhhorod, she was like, screw it. I'm just gonna go for it. Now their theater is touring France,
That's
and
great.
they were invited. They did King Lear, and they were invited to the the main Shakespearean theater in Great
Mhm.
Britain, in England, and they had feature in LA Times and all of that.
Wow.
So there's other things that she does. She does like merch now. And she said that her life changed. Even though it was a horrible experience, there's a way to change it for better, and to way
Mm.
to extract goodness out of this. And she thinks
Mm.
that told me that the most important thing is that everybody's safe. When she's in that train and she looked around, and she has her mother is there, her kid is there, her husband is there. She was like, look, I'm fine. I don't care about
Mm.
of the stuff that I left behind. So that's probably is that turn the bad into good,
Mhm.
and don't wait to do something. Do it now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there
Yeah,
you go.
that's beautiful. Well, I just wanted to go ahead and while we're talking about the exhibit, I forgot to earlier. So this is just a visual of We Know Who They Are in the space in our Gilly Fry gallery. We have two gallery rooms that the exhibit spans across on two different floors.
Beautiful
So
space.
this is our first floor when you come into our exhibit, into our space, and I think looks beautiful. So thank you to Yevgen and your whole family and team. The whole family was here installing.
They
Uh,
always are.
yeah, and Beth Goldy also, of course. Thank you to Beth, my assistant director, who is our in-house curator for our exhibitions. Justin, kind of turning to you, feel free to
Mm.
answer that question about discomfort, but also I want to kind of tie in another layer, which is the news. And we just received word yesterday, right, that Kyiv has been pretty substantially attacked. So this war is also ongoing and
Yeah.
constantly changing. And I think uh, speaking about propaganda, I think that it's just well, I don't know. I'll let you speak about that, and also what this means now as we continue to hear news. I mean, I know Iran is typically forefront of mind when people talk about war in the U.S. now. We
Right.
think Iran, but the Ukrainian war is still happening, and so talk to me a little bit about you're in Europe, so you're hearing perhaps a different perspective on that, but yeah, talk a little bit about that and how that's changing, or if it's changing at all.
Like in terms of how it's changing, or if it's changing in terms of coverage on the war in Ukraine,
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
just news in general.
Well, I think you could expand that into news in general for sure. Yeah. You know,
Sure. I mean, it really it's whenever there's an election cycle, whenever there's an election cycle, it's it I like we like to think that's when it really gets the attention that we feel it should, because there's the issue of money that the European Union is sending to Ukraine, and so then that always that bleeds into kind of all sides of discussion about it. The most recent example of this was what was happening in Hungary. They just had a huge election where Viktor Orban, the prime minister who was in power for 16 years, was unseated by 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 an opposition, by the newest prime minister, Petr Magyar.
Mhm.
And so if we want to talk about propaganda, and let's say Hungary. Hungary, a very small part of Hungary borders Ukraine. Part of Ukraine was part of the Kingdom of Hungary for around 1,000 years, and and much like all the surrounding countries of Hungary, there are either enclaves or fairly large communities of ethnic Hungarians, and so that's a point of kind of contention with the government of Hungary and Ukraine. And so this was basically being parlayed because Viktor Orban was very pro-Russian. Um, this is a much longer conversation, but to talk about news and the media in the lead up to the election, for about a year and a half before the election, all of the advertising space, none of it was, you would never see anything for an opposition candidate. What you would see is that you would see a billboard that would have Zelensky and the opposition candidate Petr Magyar throwing money into a golden toilet. Um, or they would have a picture of Zelensky holding his hands out with some text in Hungarian that would basically say, "Are we really going to give him more money?" Or scaremongering billboards talking about with soldiers saying that war is coming. If you vote against the ruling party, you're voting for war. Um, so this was quite surreal, to see this. It's quite surreal. And this was everywhere, whether you were in the center of Budapest or whether you were in a Sedenc, a village in the Tokaj region in the east. Um, and but overall, with regards to the media, because in Hungary the media was really aligned with Viktor Orban and his in the Fidesz party, but in the Czech Republic, there's a huge fight right now because the government's trying to wrestle away the independence of the state television, Česká televize. But that fight is very, very public and very, very in the open and very, very loud. And sometimes, like in Poland, it goes well, and then sometimes, like in Slovakia, it goes bad. So it's yeah, it's just but to kind of bring this back to your initial question about discomfort and art and expression, I tend to think that if you watch something that gives you discomfort, whether you walk into it knowing this is going to happen or whether you walk into it blind, the best thing about it is that it will dilate your pupils a little bit more, right? So you will leave you will leave with the position of having more knowledge about a topic that hopefully is important and is not just trying to make you discomfortable for discomfort's sake. And that in turn gets you to talk about it. And that in turn hopefully turns into action. So if something can make you so discomfortable or uncomfortable to get out of your chair and do something, then that's the best thing you can do. And I mean, whether it's, I don't know, signing a petition. I don't give a hoot or a holler who you vote for, but just vote. Right. Right. So I
Right.
don't care. I don't care I don't give a hoot, right? I don't give a rat's ass, but just vote, and because that's where it starts.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so I'm all for, but yeah, like I'm all for discomfort with artistic expression. I mean, Herman. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's I think
I'm a little bit like Marco Polo. If you ask me a question, I might go all the way around the world and come back again. So I'm, like if that
that's
happens, you just say, "Hey, spaceman, spiff," and just kind of like pull me down because
no.
I could keep going. Also, yeah,
Those are the best answers. Those are the best.
yeah, I don't know. But about media, I don't know. I think we're all kind of screwed a little bit about it. I don't want to be I don't want to be a cynic because I like to think that what we do at Punk Film and the films and the shows that we make are kind of pushing back against that. We're not just kind of saying throwing up our hands and be like, well, hell, Bill, I guess we're doomed.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but but how do we make but how do we make it better? Like we make people conscientious of what's happening, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's another thing that at least we tried to do with the movie, and we're trying to do with our other projects, Generation Nika, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could go on all day about what is art, what is propaganda, and what the line is, and why people don't perhaps see the difference between the two, or maybe maybe the line is blurred. I'm going to pass it over to Beth though, because she has some specific questions about the film, and then we'll kind of bring it back and contextualize
Okay.
and come to a close. But Beth, what are your questions?
I apologize as well. My bandwidth has dropped a couple of times, so I've missed some things. Um, so you said you were part from the
Yes,
beginning.
ma'am.
Yes. How did you all choose from the 60 people who applied?
Oh, we had interviews. Basically in the opening of the film when
Right,
they're interviewing people,
right,
right? There was around 60 some odd people that showed up,
right,
or that we asked to. But some of them were absolutely like lunatics. Um, and I say that from I'm very proud of the fact that we did not judge them, but there were people that were just like they saw the adverts and they were just like we were like, what are these people doing here?
right.
And then there's actually in the credits, it was initially going to be 4 people, right? Because initially it was going to be like 8 people, but then as the date to leave got closer and closer, people call, oh, I can't get off work,
People started dropping out.
right? Yeah, because the reality set in,
Sure.
because they were telling their friends, hey, I'm going to a war zone. Like, are you crazy?
Right.
You know? Because it's insane. Because on paper it's insane. But all those people, they're also very brave because they're really, really brave because without them, there's no movie. And it also takes a level of bravery to state an opinion on camera, right? When you're not in control of the narrative, right? So no matter no matter how much we may or I may disagree with them or have issues with some of them or them all the whole, it's like I still have I like they command my respect. And but there was a fourth guy basically, so they all kept dropping out. And we would like be like, oh, if one of them was like, my boss won't let me off work, and we're like, well, give us the phone to your boss. We'll call your boss. And we drove down and talked to the boss, and he was like, yeah. So we got permission, but we didn't pay them to go. One of them wanted money, and we said no. And at the very end, there was one guy. It was supposed to be four, and frankly, he chickened out at the end. But in the end, we ended up thanking him in the credits for not coming because he kind of would have taken over the whole trip. Like he showed up to the interview with like a I love Putin t-shirt on. Uh, and he was a bit of a nut. So he kind of did us a favor. But yeah, 60 people and down to three.
And did you all go into this thinking there's no way their minds will not be changed by what they see?
No, I think everybody thought two of them would change their mind. I think behind the scenes, we all thought that two of them might change their mind, right? But like, and I think there were times when they were starting to, um, and I think there were times where all three of them had kind of, being on the road to Damascus moments, and but they retreated, and we had to be also very gentle as well. Like, we never confronted them on anything, apart from the fixer that confronted them in the end in the van. You have that scene in the end when they're fixing the tire, and they, the answer is they just want to go home. They don't want to talk about it anymore. And yeah, it's yeah. So.
It was difficult to watch and not and see that ending with them saying, I don't want to talk about it. You know, I know you wanted to change my mind, but you haven't. And
Yeah,
it,
yeah. We almost went with the tagline. We almost went with the tagline to market the movie, and we almost used it as a title, where one of them says in the end, or what the director says in the end, Robin, when he's just exasperated, and he
Mhm.
says, and they're asking him what's wrong, and he says, because he's like, this hasn't worked, and he
Right,
just says, this is a world where evil wins.
right.
and, and because that's how I can feel, right?
Sure.
Because I mean, frankly, the executive creative director for for the Publicis Group, which is like Leo Burnett, Saatchi, a bunch of really big agencies, who he runs the Kiev office and he runs the Prague office, and he's like an advertising superstar. His name is Costa Schneider, and I asked him, and with him, we won this Silver Lion, right? I briefed I briefed his agency and we worked together to make this campaign. And I really wrote him today saying, like, hey man, how are you doing? Right? Have you adjusted? Because he went back to Ukraine. And he wrote me back saying, hey. And then he sent me this video. Literally like 2.5 hours ago. And the video is, oh, he's in a bunker right now. Like he's in right. This is how they right. And he's in Kiev, right? Kiev has been hammered right now, hammered, and but Ukraine has been punching back as well. Like we talk about propaganda and effects propaganda. My wife says that she's like, I think sometimes you've been radicalized because before I was involved in this, I had an opinion and I had a stance. I believe in picking a side, and that's why I say you should vote. But I don't. But now because I've been so involved in this, and I have to listen to her. I'm like, okay, maybe I have. Maybe my nose is so up against the glass, it's fogged up, and I can't really see anything else. But and Ukraine is hitting back, and Yevgen mentioned Kharkiv, and there we have another project that we're shooting there now called Generation Nika, where we set up film schools for kids, teenagers that still live there, and they make a short film. right? And then we're making a documentary about them trying to be teenagers as seen through the short films that they're making. But you know, the entire city is basically covered in nets because
Mhm.
they farm people there. Like Russian drone pilots will farm people there and just yeah, it's crazy. It's horrible. And war is awful. And I hope people don't forget how, at least especially in the West, that I hope people don't forget how horrible war is,
Yeah.
you know, because if they do, then it will expand.
Right.
Right.
And I think
Well,
that's something that this exhibit has helped our community with, is
Yeah.
putting faces to what they see on the news. We had
Yeah.
a gentleman yesterday, Yevgen, who came out. He was probably in his early 70s, and he sat on a bench outside the gallery and said, I need a minute because this has moved me so much. And
Yeah.
I thought about you when I saw him. So we really appreciate that. And I'm sure your film will do the same thing next week.
Thank
Feel
you.
good movie
Well,
of the year.
so I want to sort of hold on.
That's not me.
All my devices are connected, so I'm getting a call on my computer. Okay, so I want to bring us sort of home to maybe a bit of a brighter place after we've talked about all of this darkness, and it is dark, and that's the reality, and the war is raging on, no end in any time soon in sight. But I want to know from both of you, as you do this work and you share these stories, what gives you hope? Where is the glimmer of hope in the work? What gives you hope?
um, what gives me hope for what? For humanity? Or for
Take that as you will. I mean, I think are you seeing things that, with regard to the war, that are bringing you hope, like that there is an end in sight, or that people are persevering, or what is it, or maybe it's just the art getting to be shared, and educating people. I don't know. We're grasping at straws here, Yevgen. I don't know what brings you hope.
Well, if we're talking about the war, yes, I can see. Well, first of all, I had no doubt when that the war is going to happen. I had I had no doubt 10 years ago, because there are issues between Ukraine and Russia that have not been resolved. And especially it's on the part of Russia, that Russia has a problem. We're not going to get into that. It's a historical issue. It's a social issue. It's with Ukraine. But so I had no doubt that something like this would happen. I didn't think it would be that much, that serious,
Mm.
that overwhelming.
Mm.
But looking at what Russia did in Chechnya, I kind of, I should have known better. Uh, and I had no doubt that Ukraine would eventually persevere in one way or the other. No doubt in that as well. And we can see that happening. And we can see that, first of all, Ukraine already won, essentially, because it did not disappear. It's
Yeah,
already
I didn't
won.
capitulate.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's because that was the goal.
Right.
If you think that Russia cares about Crimea or Donbass, they don't. They care about other things. They care about Kiev, and they care about the Ukraine as a whole generally. Let's just
Yeah.
generalize it, right? So and so I had no doubt that Ukraine would win eventually. Maybe 2 years ago, I would think, well, maybe Ukraine will stay, but maybe some of the areas like Crimea will still either be with Russia or
Right.
somehow independent, right?
Right.
Now I can see that Ukraine can even get that back, and that gives me hope that I can
Yep.
see things finally turning. And what gives me hope is that Ukrainians are still strong, and they are not. If you read any kind of poll or opinion, public opinion, majority of Ukraine, yeah, a lot of them are tired of the war, and I know that from the interviews with them. But none of them are like, okay, let's just give up. I don't see that. There's some, of course, and then people kind of skewing maybe that direction a little bit, but the majority still don't want to give up. So that gives me hope. And it shows that, you can see reactions in Russia and Ukraine, how Ukraine basically, as I said, taking it all in stride earlier, and Russia is just not ready for it. Maybe they'll adjust. Maybe that'll happen. It just, maybe it's the Russia Ukraine began, um, you know, uh, sending drones to Russia only for about half a year, 4 months. So maybe the situation in Russia will change. Maybe somehow, but we can see that Russians were not ready for it, because for them that
No,
war
absolutely
was
not.
somewhere else. And that was the whole point of the official position of the Russian government, is that don't worry, guys, that's not going to touch you. You just live your life and you're fine. Nothing's going to happen to your lives. But now you can see that Ukraine is kind of taking it back, taking it home. So that kind of gives me hope. So I do see end in sight. But I don't think it's going to happen in the near future.
No,
Because
but
Russia,
the oil shortages they're having right now help.
Russia has resource.
Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
It's running out very quickly, but it has resource still. So, but it gives me hope. So that's what gives me hope.
Justin, what about you? What's giving you hope?
Oh man, oh gosh, you all. I listen. My son Balthazar Hamilton Salem was born like 2 weeks ago. That gives me hope. I get to I making love to my wife. It gives me hope. Drinking wine uh, makes me hope. Drinking lots of wine gives me hope.
Not
Um,
bourbon.
Listen, I like bourbon. Listen, I love bourbon. Listen, I was drinking bourbon before, like back when nobody was drinking bourbon. I mean, come on. I live down the road from Loretta, Kentucky, where they make Maker's Mark, and I love JTS Brown, which is like bottom shelf bourbon, right? No one drinks that crap. Like comes with a plastic bottle. It's like ass. But that was my go-to champ. Okay, so yeah, bourbon. But the thing is that like. I get a little bit too wild for my taste if I drink bourbon, right? It depends on the company, Yevgen. It really depends on the company. It depends on the company, right? It's like I
I
don't
feel
know.
that.
I might end up in a police car driving if I drink bourbon.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
So
That would give me hope. Yeah. I wanted to share, and maybe Beth, you have something. You shared something great from the exhibit. Something that gives me hope, specifically about this exhibit, and about this work. And hopefully, the film will do this as well. But we have summer camps going on right now. So these little Appalachian Eastern Kentucky kids coming in for their summer art camp. And one of the kids was looking at the exhibit and stopped, and I was talking to them just a little bit, just to engage. And one of the kids, maybe third or fourth grade, said, "This is so sad." Commented and said, "This is really, really sad." So they were contextualizing it for themselves, and the thing that stuck with me that gives me hope is they said, I hope this never happens again.
Oh,
and
get his name and keep track of him.
That's it's sort of like one of those. It just hit me in a way. It's sort of probably an off comment to this kid, but planting seeds in our corner of the world in these young minds.
Yeah.
These are people who will vote, who will contribute to society, who will hopefully run for office. That's meaningful for me and for the work that you all are doing. That it's impacting some kids in rural Eastern Kentucky who hopefully their minds have been changed. So, go ahead, Justin.
Yeah. I just want to say one thing, just specific regards to hope and Ukraine. When this whole it touches on what Yevgen was getting at is that when in February 4 or 5 years ago when Russia formally invaded Ukraine, you know right then and there, I was texting with a cousin. I was texting that night with a cousin of mine, who was downrange in Ukraine for about 9 months as a volunteer right after. And you know, we were saying kind of in our conversation that the moment that he did that, all of the rhetoric and all of the logic that he used to kind of lay as a foundation to predicate like his actual invasion, what he did is that he made Ukraine more more solidified as both a nation and as a nation and as an idea than it basically solidified it as much as it was back in what was it, the 13th century before the Mongols came through, right? And that doesn't get eliminated in a conflict like in a war in the kind of war that is happening right now. And so from that moment, even though it's a war of attrition, that's horrible because the human toll is so high, right? The result is Russia loses and Ukraine wins. Ukraine as a people, as a nation, and as an idea wins. Not only does it win, it wins for centuries to come. And that gives me hope because it's like, okay, there really is something to look forward to tomorrow. And also too, if you meet people from when you meet people from Ukraine, they're tough as nails, right? Like the things that these people are doing, both artists, right? Artists and just anything involving any sort of expression, whether it's business or whether it's technology or whether it's artistic expression, it is like a beautiful orgasm that is being just furled on everyone right now, and all the best of ways of that the stuff that's being made there and it's coming out of there. So
Well, what a great note to leave it on. Thank you, Justin, Yevgen. Please come see the film. We are screening it on July 10th. Change my mind. 6:30 p.m. Free admission. Please come see We Know Who They Are at the Gateway Regional Arts Center, 101 East Main Street, Mount Sterling, Kentucky. You will not miss it. The bright yellow building. We just repainted it. You can't miss it.
You really can.
You really can. You really can.
I gotta go there.
You can see us from space. So thank you, Yevgen. Thank you, Justin. Thank you so much for your work and your time today. And keep up the great work. We've clearly chosen a side here, as Justin, you said you have to choose a side, and I'm just so inspired by everything and all the great comments that we've had from the exhibit at Mount Sterling, and I look forward to seeing where it goes next. So, and the film as well. So we'll have that on July 10th. Thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.